Everybody, today I'm going to go over lockup control, so converter lockup. I made a video on how to use this a long time ago. I figured I would revisit it and show you how to use it again and, some data from it and how it actually functions in the real world. So, if you don't know what a lockup converter is, there's clutches inside of the converter that make it lock up and run one-to-one. So, um, Holley has a transmission ICF right here. If you don't have that transmission ICF, you go to Toolbox and then add individual config, and then scroll down here to transmission, double click it, and hit racing. So that'll bring you to this. So transmission type is racing transmission, and number of gears is 3. So this is we're going to look at log and whatnot from my own car. It's got a close ratio 3-speed turbo 400. So the holley controls the shifter, the lockup, the dump valve, spool assist, the whole 9 yards. But today we're just going to look at lockup. So click on converter lockups. All right. My lockup system has 3 solenoids. Okay. So the way this works is when this lock main engages, it applies full pressure, but when these two are not active, they bleed pressure off, so it doesn't apply full pressure to the lockup clutches inside of the torque converter. As you start closing these, and when we see this, you'll understand. When we start turning these on, which closes them, the pressure jumps up, and then the converter goes one-to-one. So the way this works is I just named them, right? So I have a minimum time, 1.5 seconds into the run, and a RPM of 7,400, okay? Now, both of these criteria have to be met, okay? So it has to be at least 1.5 seconds into the run, and it has to be at least 7,400 engine RPM. This is something you're going to have to play with on your own, with your own combination, because it really depends on how your torque converter acts and what kind of engine you have and how high you rev it and yada yada. So these are the settings that I use for mine. If you copy this and shove this into your car with a lockup, you're dumb. If you spent the money to put a lockup in your car, take the information that I give you and think about it rationally and apply it towards your own program. Don't just copy and paste this, because it probably won't work out great. So anyway, 7,400 RPM and 1.5 seconds into the run. I also have it set for minimum gear for activation is 1. Notice that out here, minimum gear activation is 3. So I don't turn on the last lockup solenoid until high gear. All right. So the first solenoid turns on, 1.5 seconds, 7,400. The second one turns on at 1.8 seconds and 7,450. Now that's something to keep in mind as we look at what we have in data out here. This is also set to first gear. You have a minimum TPS for all 3 of them, and then you have a minimum engine RPM. So what that means is, and you nitrous guys pay attention, if the engine gets pulled down from the lockup being engaged below this RPM, it will turn off the lockup. Okay? So the lockup turns off. So if you engage it at 7,400 and the lockup gets really tight and pulls the motor way down, it's going to turn off at 6,500. These are programmable for you and for you to decide. Next, we have a pedaling strategy. So if for some reason you get below 75% TPS and then you get back above 75% TPS and all the rest of this is met, then it will restart all of this. Okay, converter relock delay is half a second. Then we have the ability to unlock it during shifts. Okay, so this one out here doesn't matter because the minimum gear is 3. So it's not going to lock up until it goes in a 3rd gear, right? So there's no shift to unlock it for. The delay, and when we look at data, this will make more sense. Sorry, I'm yawning, tired. So the delay of this will make a little bit more sense here in a minute. The unlock time is the amount of time that we're going to leave it unlocked for. so it can go through the shift without the converter locked up. Okay, so let's look at some data. Here we go. So this is a run from Sick Week. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. So left click, hold, drag, highlight, and zoom in. So so as you can see, turn all this off. There we go. That's our RPM trace, right? Looks pretty bad. Now, full disclosure here, this thing blew up right around there. All right, so it broke a valve. Looks like we broke I don't know which one came first, but an intake and exhaust valve in number one. I kind of went over that on Facebook. I screwed up. Didn't warm the thing or didn't preheat the oil. Yada yada. Doesn't matter. Has nothing to do with lockup. So we let go of the trans brake button. Flashes up to 6800. Let's look at lock main. So these orange lines are our main lockup solenoid, our first stage, right? We'll just call that stage one, right? So stage one gets activated right here, right? So notice we are right there is where it activates, right? Whoops, two right there. And we're 1.58 seconds into the run, or 1.59 seconds into the run, and we just crested 7,400. So notice both of those things have to be active, right? So 7,400 and 1.5, right? So that's why it didn't engage at 1.50, it engaged at 1.59, because that's where we hit 7,400 RPM. Okay, so we make 7,400 RPM and lockup is engaged. Now, this is the part that a lot of people don't seem to grasp too well with lockup. So we engaged it here. Why didn't it pull the engine down yet? Well, this is lockup pressure. So notice we turned it on, the solenoid's on, but mechanically, just like a shifter and how we have to go through all that, and how a shifter has to mechanically, move some parts before it actually engages the next gear. Same thing with lockup, right? So we turn it on here, 7,400 RPM, right? But we still have not accelerated, or we still haven't pulled the engine down, right? So here we are. Remember, it engaged at 1.59 into the run, right? Right here, we just start getting 70 pounds of lockup pressure, 1.68. So let's zoom in a little bit just so we can kind of microanalyze this stuff, right? So 1.59, we engage it, come out here, we get our first step of lockup pressure, right? Now, why do we have this big jump? Well, we have this big jump because I closed lockup external 2, which let's just call that stage 2. We engage stage 2 of lockup. When stage 2 of lockup engages, now we've got a substantial increase in pressure, right? We're up to 190 pounds of pressure. Here we're only at 72. Here we're out here at about 190 pounds of pressure. Notice what it did to the engine. Red is engine RPM. So here we are, 7,600, 7,650, cruising right along, and it pulls it all the way down here to 6990, right? So it yanks the motor down 600 something RPM, 650 RPM, and starts to accelerate, right? So now the question is was this worthwhile doing, right? So I've gotten a whole bunch of messages and calls and whatnot, like, hey, do you recommend lockup, blah, blah, blah. Well, it really depends, okay? I'll show you what it does to the G meter. So the G meter is how hard we accelerate, the VPS. So the x-axis is how fast we accelerate. So here's the G meter, okay? Let go of the button. G meter's out here, 2.38 G. Notice that the G meter's kind of dancing. This is a different video, but basically the profiler is pulling timing out of this thing. I've got a timing retard in it. Basically, we're slowly getting to the point of racing this car like a blower car, where we just start to pin the gate shut and control it all with timing. So disregard like the choppiness of the G meter, but either way, the choppiness of a G meter is accurate G meter data. So the G meter starts to fall off, right? We come up here, we peak, right? We're out here, the converter's starting to couple. Notice the RPM's laying flat. It's starting to accelerate earlier, right? G meter starts to fall off. What do? We engage the lockup. Then G meter 2.02. Once we get a little bit of lockup pressure in it, notice the G meter spikes, right? So we're all the way up to 2.49, right? 2.49 G, right? And we are damn near 2 seconds into the run, all right? Did that help us? Yes, because without the lockup engaged, what would have happened is the G meter would have continued to fall like it normally does, right? Until we hit the shift. We would have saw a little spike on the shift, and then it would have tapered off. So yes, it is faster with the lockup, but lockup isn't for everybody. Could we have gone just as fast if the converter was built a little bit different, that we weren't planning on using lockup? Probably, but that's what we're doing. So we put a lockup in this thing, and we're going to use it. So there's stage one, right? Main lock, it's on. There's stage two. Stage two engages. Now look at the mechanical delay in the amount of time, right? 1.79 is where we engage it, and then we don't get full lockup pressure out here until 1.93. So that's 0.14 seconds, right? So 0.14 seconds before this thing engages. So if the valves in cylinder one decided to not leave the chat, the plan was to turn the lockup on back here, right? So back this up to about 7,200 RPM, back this up to about 1.5 into the run and 7,300 RPM, get the lockup to engage a little bit earlier, and we would have had a little bit more acceleration out of it, right? So let's look at the shift part of this, right, with lockup. So we'll get rid of lockup pressure, and let's just look at these. Now notice they both shut off right there, okay? So why do they shut off right there? Well, there's that shift caveat in there. So let's look at shift out. So this is the shift output. So the shift output is commanded right here, right at 2.17 seconds. Go back here, and I've got my shift delay, right, at 0.1. Okay, so that means that what it's going to do, it's going to wait to unlock 0.1 seconds. Okay, so we are at 2.79, and then this should be, where we're at? No, we were at 2.79. Hold on. Let's see here. Come on. Right there, shift happens right there, 2.17. There we go. And then right here at 2.27, it turns the lockup solenoids off, right? So, why does it take so long for it to shift? Well, a couple of reasons. One, we just unlocked the converter and it starts to flare in essence, right? Two, mechanically, a whole bunch of stuff has to happen before the transmission actually engages the next gear. So here's our shift commanded at 2.17. The actual shift happens around 2.35, right? So that's a 0.18 delay between the shift command versus the actual shift happening, right? Honestly, not too shabby on a 1 to 2 shift. It gets closer on the 2 to 3, right? So it reacts just a little bit faster than 2 to 3. Plus, this car is also accelerating really fast. So like you see an RPM climb that's pretty dramatic, but if you have a car that makes 1,000 less horsepower, you probably won't see nearly as much of an RPM climb. But for today's purposes, educational purposes, all we really care about is the delay that we put in, which was 1/10 of a second, right? So it keeps the lockup on for an additional 1/10 of a second, and then the amount of time from this 2.27 come out here, and it should be unlocked for 0.2 for lockup 1 and 0.25 for lockup external 1, right? So 2.1 or 2.27 is when it shuts off. We come out here and we're at 2.47, right? Whatever, right there, 2.47, and main lockup re-engages because it waited 0.2 seconds. So that 0.2 seconds lets us get through the shift. Lockup turns back on because our parameters are met, right? 7,400 engine RPM and at least 1.5 into the run, obviously. We're in second gear. Lockup is engaged. Main lockup solenoid is engaged. Okay? And we come over here, and 0.25 after that is when the second lockup solenoid engages, right? So there we are. That's why we have a little bit of a delay. That's why you see that blue line there. Here, let's zoom in a little further. That's why you see this orange line hit first. That's your main lockup, right? That's my main lockup solenoid. And then you wait at, 0.05, and then we've got that light blue line, which is our external solenoid. And you can see the lockup pressure follow suit. Okay. So this is the way lockup works. Now we get out in a third gear. Let's see what happens. So again, same deal. Hit the lockup or hit the shift right there. 2.88. We scroll out here, and we got 2.98, which is our tenth of a second delay, right? Right there. There's our delay. Same delay for both of them, right? And then we've got a 0.20 right here. We wait 0.2. We engage lockup main. We wait 0.25. We engage lockup external 1. And that's when we turn on external 2 out here. So I turn on external 2, which is full lockup pressure out here. So the third stage of lockup hits at 3.75 into the run, and we get lockup pressure topped out at 3.80. So it's pretty damn instant, going from 190-ish pounds, to 230-ish pounds, 240-ish pounds, right? Because all we're doing is closing one last solenoid. Everything else has already been in motion. But notice we don't have the lockup pressure high. You see how it kind of like lays over right there. That's because this one hasn't engaged yet. So hopefully this answers some questions about how lockup functions, how to use it in a drag race application. Um, I'm a fan. I use Cameron's torque converter services for lockup. The way they did this, I'm very happy with. The car accelerates a heck of a lot better through the middle now with the lockup. And we are getting ready to go to Georgia in like a week and a half, I think, 2 weeks, something like that, to run the Ducks race, the Lights Out. I think it's either Lights Out or No Mercy this time of year. Can't remember. For the streetcar bragging rights race. So this thing will be being used here very shortly. So anyway, hopefully you learned something. Let me know in the comments if there's something else you want to see and learn. See ya.